4, the Honourable Maryan Street.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Tertiary Education and asks, what does she say to the over 53,000 people who signed petitions seeking reinstatement of funding to night classes delivered through high schools and community groups about their future lack of access to second chance education, including literacy and numeracy skills, resulting from her funding cuts?
Mr Speaker, 53,000, that's about twice the number of people who know who Phil Goff is. Mr Speaker, I would say that the government... Mr Speaker, I would say that the government remains committed to adult and community education, and that's why in these tough times we are investing $124 million in adult and community education over the next 4 years. But we've made the decision to prioritise some funding towards 2,000 places under the Youth Guarantee for the young people in New Zealand who are the most affected by an economic recession.
Honourable Maryan Street.
Supplementary to the Minister. Does she now...
Order. I apologise to the member. The House has been quite noisy. I accept that. There's issues that have got that members feel strongly about. But when I call a member to ask a question, I would ask that the interjections cease. Both sides, please. Honourable Maryan Street.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Cherry Brantley.
You equally call on ministers to answer questions, but don't seem to apply quite the same rigour to the way in which the opposition are able to barrack during ministers' answers. It doesn't really bother us because we watch the TV and we know that members of the public hear the answer anyway.
The House will resume his seat. I think it doesn't take a lot of thought to realise that if an answer is provocative, the Minister cannot expect the Speaker to prevent the other side of the House from... however, I do accept today I've allowed a bit more noise than I usually do, and I apologise if that's caused a problem. I'll try and tighten up on it a bit. The Honourable Maryan Street.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister. Does she now agree that if she cannot see the significance of 53,000 New Zealanders signing these petitions, if she doesn't listen to their concerns and reverse the decision to cut funding to adult and community education courses, that she will be failing communities all around New Zealand and failing as the Minister of Education, and if not, why not?
The Honourable Antolli.
Mr Speaker, the member asking the question has asked those questions in the House for months now, and the answer is the same. Providing second chance opportunities for people in the community is a priority for this government. That's why we are providing $124 million in adult and community education. But second chance learning also occurs at universities, at polytechs, at wānanga and private training enterprises, and they all got an increase in the budget.
Alan Peachy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister for Tertiary Education.
Order.
What were the drivers behind the decision to reprioritise adult and community education funding?
Honourable Antolli.
Mr Speaker, one of the primary drivers was the $521 million of unfunded commitments that member asking the primary question as Associate Minister of Tertiary Education in the previous government left for the incoming government to find. We had to find $500 million worth of unfunded commitments out of the tertiary budget before we started.
Darian Fenton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, is she aware that there will be no adult community education classes north of the Harbour Bridge in 2010? And what representations have her colleagues made to her about this?
Honourable Antolli.
Mr Speaker, a number of people have raised a number of issues around the changes that we're making to adult and community education. In fact, I met with the representatives of the Wellington High School, including teacher, who was concerned that the people who took his classes and had written to him from Chile and Bolivia saying how helpful their classes were, was not going to be able to continue. What I'm saying is taxpayers cannot continue to support the funding of such hobby courses, and literacy and numeracy is the focus for the $124 million of ACE funding that this government is supporting.
Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Darren Hughes.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague Darian Fenton asked a question about services north of the Harbour Bridge, which most people refer to as Auckland. The Minister in her reply told us what a Wellington provider thought, but didn't answer the question as would there be services north of the Harbour Bridge?
If that was the only question asked, that would be fine. But I invite the member to listen to the supplementary questions being asked, because the supplementary question asked what representations that the Minister had received on the matter, and the Minister did, in her answer, talk about representations she had received on the matter. Now, the example she gave later on didn't relate to Northland, but she'd already answered, because she only needs to answer one part of a supplementary. The member will resume his seat, and what's more, he won't argue with me.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, the member did ask about representation. She asked about representations from colleagues. That was not addressed.
Yes, not at all.
The Minister did answer the question, because she said she'd received a number of representations on the matter, and anyone I think would assume that she was talking about what the Minister had asked her about, and we don't need to get that pedantic. And as far as I'm concerned, she answered the question. The Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister, does she think that it is acceptable that there will be no adult and community education classes in the whole of the West Coast Tasman electorate?
The Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr. Speaker, I would say to that member that the Tertiary Education Commission has not yet finalised. It's my understanding that the initial discussions have been held and it has not yet been finalised. That is coming in the near future.
Chris Hipkins.
Supplementary question to the Minister. Does she think it's acceptable that no secondary schools in the Hutt Valley will even be applying for adult and community education night classes next year? And has she communicated the details of her funding cuts to Nationalist MP Paul Quinn, who told a public meeting in Upper Hutt that those who claimed the funding had been cut had their facts wrong?
The Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr. Speaker, I say to that member that this government is investing $124 million in adult and community education. That does not have to be provided through schools. That can be provided through a variety of tertiary institutions. And I say again, the final decisions have not been made, and they won't be made until the next few weeks.
Kelvin Davis.
To the Minister, what will the impact of reduced ACE provision be on Māori who frequently access these classes as a route back into formal education?
The Honourable Anne Tolley.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of myths being talked about adult and community education. Māori will benefit from the new focus on literacy and numeracy, but I'm not quite sure how supporting ukulele playing and tie-dyed silk scarves will help many Māori back into formal education.
Mr. Speaker.
Carmel Sepuloni.
To the Minister of Education, what will the impact of reduced adult community education provision be on Pacific Island parents who rely on these classes to equip them to understand what their children are learning at school, to improve and increase parenting skills and to improve their English?
The Honourable Anne Tolley.
Mr. Speaker, again I would say to that member, there's a lot of myths being talked about adult and community education. Those same parents will benefit from the focus on numeracy and literacy and foundation skills. But again, I'm not sure that the taxpayer continuing to fund hobby courses like Moroccan cooking, like ukulele playing, like belly dancing, like make-up courses, how to better your relationships will do those parents any good at all.
Question number 5,